You know what this is right here? This little guy? This is a Lego minifigure. I'm sure everybody's got one in their house somewhere, and I like to photograph them. This one specifically, I think it's off the really old movie that came out in 2014. I think it's called the Lego Movie. You see this guy right here serve some coffee.
There you go. That's $37.
Awesome!
And a couple years ago, I did a shoot. I had him drowning in coffee, and that was back when I didn't know anything about aperture, ISO, shutter speeds, or anything like that. So today, I want to show you how to photograph this figure. So let's go. So originally, I used a Nescafe like box that had like a little window. It was actually thrown out a couple years ago because the last time I did this shoot was literally 2019. So I'm gonna have to improvise and use this instead, which should be just as effective because it's still coffee in it. So the main thing I want to achieve in this shot, I want to make it look like he's drowning in the coffee because he serves coffee, and also it just makes sense because he's got the expression that you see here. For most of my shoots, I've been using the Canon 50mm f1.8. This lens is literally so good for Lego photography because you can get the figure to be super sharp, and for some reason it feels like it brings out like the textures a lot more as well. If you don't have like a lens like this, you can literally still use your phone. All it comes down to is like the angle and how you compose the image. So let's shoot this. So I've actually moved back into the place that I shot the intro because the lighting in the kitchen was just awful. There was really bleak shadows. It was very flat, and the image just didn't look that great. So I moved back into here next to the window so we can get great lighting, because coffee grains are quite a dark texture. So we really want to emphasize that by getting nice shadows. And like I said before, it doesn't matter what camera you use, it just comes down to the composition, so how you frame the shot, the lighting, and the figure you use to tell the story, because that's what's going to appeal to audiences, the story that you convey through the figure. The story behind here is you've got the coffee figure drowning in, coffee grains, Not really a great story now that I think about it, but it makes sense, I think we've got the shots that we need, and now we're gonna go edit. Now we've got the edit. I'm gonna be using Lightroom for this tutorial. So first what we wanna do is we wanna review for import. So we're gonna import all the photos that we took today into Lightroom. This shot here is really good. That looks like a hero image. And the best thing you can do is zoom in to your shots to make sure they're in focus before you start editing. And it's always important to get both a landscape and a portrait version of each photo, because yes, you're gonna have one for Instagram, and then you're gonna have one maybe you wanna create as an actual print you wanna put on your wall. That one's slightly out of focus, you can see. So you got the coffee grains in focus, but his face isn't in focus. And this is why lighting is so important. So this shot was in the kitchen. You can see looks like a very flat image. So I think the hero shot of today is this one. So we're gonna be editing this for this tutorial. So I'm gonna edit in Photoshop. Also, my figure now, after we've done that shoot, just smells like coffee, which depending on who you are is either a good thing or a bad thing. If you love the smell of coffee, then it's great. So what I usually do is I start with the spot healing tool, and I'll zoom into the image and I'll look for any inconsistencies with the figure. This might be a coffee grain or it might be a hair, so we got to remove that out of the eye. And then that gets rid of it immediately. And up here we can clearly see that there's a hair, so we're going to get rid of that hair. That just makes the image look better, because if you get these printed out and you see like hairs and stuff like that, it kind of takes away from the image. There actually isn't a whole lot to get rid of in this shot. I sometimes like to get rid of the hair pieces where they connect, and in this one you can clearly see it. Just like that. So I think the image is pretty good here. So we're going to exit out of Lightroom. We're going to save changes. It's not a significant change between the two. As you can see, there's just a little bit of details that we got rid of. In most shots that I do, there's quite a lot more to get rid of, but I'm just going to chuck on one of my presets. I think this one looks pretty good, but we're going to change the browns a bit because we don't want to lose the color entirely. So I think that nice brown here, and then we're going to take the exposure down a little bit, take the whites down, and then we want to make sure that his face is still yellow. So it goes to almost a brown. So what we want to do is Photoshop has this really good tool that I've been using quite a bit lately. Go into create new mask and you hit subject. It's selected the subject and now we can change the color of his face so it's back to yellow. And there we go. His face is back to yellow. Make a few more adjustments here and there. Take the blacks down a bit so then we get those nice coffee grounds. And then one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into masks. I'm going to select the sky. Even though there's no sky in the shot, I want to see if it takes the top part of that jar so then I can edit it, which it has here too. So I'm just going to do a light exposure down, put a little bit of saturation in there. I think for the shot, because we're shooting inside a jar, we're going to put a little bit of a dark vignette, like so, and I think we're done. That's the shot. That's the editing process. So the shot that we took in the kitchen is a real testament to how important lighting is. I use the same preset I use with outside the window, and you can just see between these two, there's just a significant difference with how the coffee looks compared to the kitchen one. There's just a lot more texture, a lot more shadows. Overall, I'm really happy with how the final shot turned out in comparison to 4 years ago. Barely getting focus or the exposure right. I think there's been a huge improvement. I want to experiment with more figures and doing like tutorials on how to take photos maybe outside, experimenting with floating images like these ones here. So let me know what you want to see next and I might make a future video about it. So until then, see you next time.